All right, guys, welcome to the Gripe Session. So, if you're like me, you absolutely love 1914. It's a great game. It's so complex, and yet it is accessible to beginners. I think they've done a really good job of making the interface, um, pretty intuitive. There's a lot of things that the noobs have to learn, like not running infantry into their immediate deaths against fortresses. But you learn it pretty quick, usually the hard way, but maybe if you're lucky by somebody telling you to chill out. but uh, but there are a few things I'm sure that all of us would prefer to have different. So this is the one video that I'm going to set aside to be a gripe session. And really all it is things that I wish were different in the game. So I definitely wanted to preface that by saying, if this game just stayed the same forever, I'd be happy. I love this game. Um, I love the social aspect of it too. They've done a really good job of letting players form alliances within the game. Um, their coalitions. I'm looking in now to forming an alliance, which of course is within the larger game, sort of the meta of the game platform. I haven't looked into it deep. I'm in an alliance, but I just got invited, and I was like, yeah, okay. So a lot of my viewers have asked if I would form an alliance. I think that's a good idea. I don't think there's any limit to an alliance, so my subscribers could join this alliance, and then we'd have a pool where we could immediately contact each other via the game platform. So I think sort of the platform communication and alliance ability, as well as the in-game coalition, the messaging back and forth, the spies that can intercept messages. I mean, it's such a great, complex game, and it's the kind of game that while it has very simple objectives of conquering and gaining material and economy, you can always seem to find another layer. So I love it. I love chess. Chess is one of my all-time favorite games, and it too is. There's really only a limited number of well, obviously a limited number of pieces, but there's only like what six different chess pieces, right? And yet, really, the you could study chess for the rest of your life and read books about it and never still be finished. And I feel like this game is like that as well. So I love this game. So just wanted to take a minute though, and if you have any gripes, and really in this sense, gripe just means something that you wish was in the game or you wish the game could let you do, then share them in the comments below. We can gripe together, knowing that in our hearts we actually really love this game. So my number one gripe, and you've probably heard me say it before, is I really wish we could retreat in this game. I can't tell you the number of times I've had, and then, a stack of let's say 120 guys, and then maybe, 10 cannon. And this is an extreme example. And then, like overnight, I'm asleep overnight, like 500 guys leave a fort across the frontier from me, with 500 guys and some tanks. And then when I wake up in the morning, I'm engaged. And so I'm outnumbered. My fortress has already been worn down to zero. I don't have a fortress anymore. And I've already lost, let's say, 40 guys and 2 artillery pieces. So my point is, in this situation, I should be able to retreat some of those guys out. And right now in this game, everyone dies. They all stay there and die. And I've actually seen on this site where like every hour or something, supposedly you have a chance to retreat. And if that's true, I've never been able to pull it off, because I've tried many times with just out of desperation, just drag that arrow back and just please let me out. I had one time where I had a stack of, I had a nice stack of infantry, and then like 10 bombers that were grounded. They, again, while I'm sleeping, they won't patrol forever, or maybe I had them attacking or something, because I think they will patrol for Maybe they will patrol, but I had him attacking or something dumb. But I came back and like two of them were dead. That little township was engaged by the enemy, and I just desperately was like, I'll leave my infantry here and I'll just retreat with my bombers. And of course, it didn't work. So here's my thinking, and I think this is actually common to welfare, to warfare rather, throughout history, is that you have a rear guard, you fight what's called a rear action. Like this is a known tactic of retreat. Like it's happened from Babylonian times through medieval times to like modern warfare, that you have a rear guard fighting rear action, which means just slowing the enemy down and letting the main body of your army retreat, disengage and retreat. So, what I would suggest, what I think seems like historically accurate and fair, is that I think 20 to 25% of your troops would have to be left behind, and it would have to be its own button, right? You'd have to click on the retreat button, and that would be just like a move or attack command. And then when you move the arrow, it would automatically take, say 75 to 80%, whatever we decide is fair, so that 20 or 25%, I think 20% is fair. That's 1/5 of your men standing rear guard, moving slowly backwards while, falling back slowly and laying down cover fire while the main body of your army retreats behind you. So let's just say 20% is fair. I'd even accept 50%, like just let me get away with some of them. But let's just say, so it would move 80% of each of your type of troops out of that territory. Just sort of assuming that you have to leave behind, even if that means leaving behind artillery, which doesn't make any sense really, but let's just say that's because those units are engaged directly and they just can't get away. So that's kind of my number one complaint, my number one gripe that makes this game somewhat unrealistic, is the inability to retreat. Now, from a programming viewpoint, that's a huge ask. That's not a current sort of thing that can just be tweaked, right? As I've described it, it would take an entirely different button, that has its own algorithmic demands and, calculations and whatnot. So it's a big ask. I don't know if it's anything that can possibly happen. And I don't know how many people play this game. I don't know how much money they make from it. I don't know how many coders they have working on it. If it's, it seems to be a fun game, but then I've seen people on the Reddit talk about, oh yeah, I remember I used to play this game back when it was cool or something like that. It's like, oh, okay, well, I just found out about it last year and it's freaking awesome. But okay, so I don't know if it's reached its peak and has passed its peak. That doesn't seem that way to me. I'll be honest with you. Just from the response I've gotten on this channel, when I find people that love it, they love it like me. They love it a lot. It's a really cool game. It's very rich and has a lot of complexity. And the fact that it takes so long for units to get from one place to another, that pisses off the people with short attention spans, the people who need bang, flash, immediate gratification. And it allows the room for the rest of us who have patience and who like to plan ahead and who like to watch things unfold slowly. And I'll have to say too, it also opens the door for those of us with, that have jobs. We can't play first person shooters, can't play Skyrim all day long. We've got to go to a job, but we can check our phone during our lunch break and see if somebody's attacking. You know what I'm saying? Like we can check every couple hours, on our breaks or during lunch, and just make a quick little adjustment. So it's a cool game for people who have patience and people who like complexity, and and also people who do have other obligations in their lives. So anyway, retreat. That's my number one gripe. My second gripe is this, and this is also just all through history. It's called kind of a scorched earth thing, and what it is. The Nazis did it as they retreated out of Russia, and it sucks. It's horrible, but it's the reality of warfare. It's what happens. And so what I'm describing here is a couple of different things. Basically being able to destroy material, right? Being able to destroy stuff. But here's the first element of that I think should apply. So I'm a big fan of running in my fast units, right? Run in your cavalry, run in your armored cars, and turn that territory green, right? Capture that territory. Run in your infantry, your tanks, and especially your cannon behind those fast units. As soon as you capture that unit, as soon as you capture that territory, it turns green and your movement triples in effect, right? Because you were at 1/3 speed, now you're at full speed. So it's a great tactic. However, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. If I'm slowed down in enemy territory because I don't know the terrain, the people are unfriendly and they're throwing out material into the streets to slow us down, whatever the justification is for slowing me down, it does not immediately change after you get there and take over the territory. So my suggestion for this is that you should still be at 1/3 movement for 1 to 2 days. Okay, this is tied into the scorched earth in a way, just because you've taken over administration of the territory, you're getting a hold of reliable maps, you're learning the lay of the land, you're talking to some snitches, some of the local population who are willing to turn on their neighbors in order to get some truffles and cheese and whatever. But I think it should take a day or two for you to get full movement in that territory. That's kind of the first aspect of this. But the flip side of that is this. I do think before you leave a territory, if someone's steamrolling towards you, as the Russians were, as the Soviets were towards Nazi Germany, the Russians were definitely about to take over these territories. So they actually had the Germans actually had special rail cars with just giant, it looked like a scorpion's tail kind of situation made out of steel, and it would be pulled behind a locomotive, and its entire purpose was to destroy the railway, and it would just snap the railroad ties in half. Without the ties, the rails will split and throw any train that tries to ride on it. So this is historically accurate. Now, you can't just click a button. In my perfect world, you can't just click a button and destroy a railway. It would take time to do that. So again, depending on, if it's a railway, we can say it takes 3 days to build it. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not really sure. It depends on the game mode and the speed. But if it takes 3 days to build it, fine. It takes 2 days to destroy it. Okay, it's going to be quicker to destroy than to build, but it's still going to take time. We could work out the peculiarities or the details of that. But the same thing applies to factories, right? If you can bomb into a factory and reduce its level, which you can, why can't I set explosives in it before I leave and destroy it down levels or even altogether? Okay, so that's another fairly major flaw in the game. It's not a major flaw in the game. The game's pretty seamless and perfect, but it's one area where historically people have absolutely demolished access to factories, railways, and so forth. Certainly the same is true of harbors. There's no reason why I can't just set my artillery to lob against my own harbor before I'm forced to retreat out of that territory. So I really feel like railways, factories, and harbors should be able to be destroyed by the owner. Again, sort of scorched earth. As you retreat, you should be able to do that. Now, the caveat is this. I do think that it should take time to do. And we can talk about that. Should it take a day? Should it take 2 days? Should it take a day for every level of the factory to destroy? And what I'd love is this. If something happens and your enemy either gets stopped or someone else invades him and he has to turn his attention elsewhere, guess what? You just destroyed your stuff. So since it takes time, 1, 2, or even 3 days, or in a level 4 factory, it takes maybe, we're talking about 4, 5 days or something. Since it takes time to destroy it, you have to predict what's going to happen. You have to predict that you're going to get steamrolled. And so you're just trying. The other thing is that if they're just steamrolling in fast, you won't have time to destroy your stuff. And that also is historically accurate. I feel like in some of the Nazi camps, the Allies came in so fast that they were still kind of like destroying records, right? They were still trying to cover up what they'd done, and they were caught sort of in the act because they weren't fast enough. They got captured too quickly. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Now, you notice I didn't mention forts, and I didn't mention forts because specifically forts are made of concrete and rebar, reinforced concrete. Um, I think maybe you should be able to destroy them for the same reason, because after all, if enemy artillery can destroy them, then why can't I destroy them? Especially since I have access to planting explosives inside of them, where they might be structurally less. We're building them with this dome shape to be, structurally defensible from the outside. But forts, if we allowed this whole scorched earth destruction of our own material to happen, forts would be the ones that would take the longest to destroy. There's just no question about that. It would take, to make them completely unusable, it would take a long time. So that's about it. I mean, those are my two real complaints. Is that I honestly think that people should be able to retreat with loss. You'd have to take a loss. I do think that people should be able to destroy their own material as they retreat, or destroy their own material and then not have to retreat and then kick themselves because they wish they hadn't. But anyway, the ability to destroy your own stuff seems really, again, like it should be possible. On the other hand, I will have to say this: it would be another sort of major, from a programming point of view, it'd probably be a major thing to do. It doesn't fit well with any sort of other mechanics. Maybe you could let players attack themselves, but boy, that would open up a whole nightmare of accidental self-attacks, right? Like maybe you could allow self-attack, but with like 2 warning windows, like you're about to attack yourself. Are you sure? And then you click yes, and it says, really though, are you drunk? Like, are you sure? And then you click yes, and then it lets you attack yourself. So maybe that could be a thing. It could work within the current mechanics, and all you'd have to do is just allow people the same attack command that they have against an enemy and just allow that against their own units. The only caveat being just make sure, give them a couple warning windows. So maybe that would, the retreat button or the retreat concept would be a whole thing. I feel like, they'd really have to build a lot of stuff in there that's not already there. But possibly that whole destroying your own material could be integrated in a little bit more easily with the current code. And then the other sort of aspect to that was, I don't understand why just immediately when you capture a territory, you go to full speed. I mean, if there's stuff blocking the roads, if the populace has been cutting telegraph lines, if you don't know the roads because you don't have any maps, because it's 1914, it's the turn of the century, and we don't have the internet, we don't have good maps or whatever. I'm fine with all that, but all of that does not change immediately as soon as you walk into the capital of that district or the courthouse or whatever and say, hey, we're in charge. So I don't know, that would make things a little bit more realistic. However, it would slow the game down. So there could be an argument made that, hey, just for game speed of motion, speed of movement, let's leave that out. And for that reason alone, that's not a big gripe of mine. I think, okay, you get it, it's yours, you go to full speed, I'm fine with that. Again, hearkening back to chess, there was a time when pawns only moved one at a time, and games were taking forever. And so the whole 2 squares on your first move thing was introduced, and it was really controversial at first, because the purists were like, how dare you, pawns move only 1 square at a time. And of course, the compromise, as some of you know, is en passant, which means if you make that initial 2 square move with your pawn, and you pass through a square that another pawn is attacking, they get to capture you in passing in that middle square. So anyway, there's really no justification for that 2 square pawn move, except for expediting the game, making the game just move at a better pace. So I can understand if you flip the territory over to like, hey, everything's fine, the population are no longer against you, they're not cutting telegraph wires, all the roads are clear, and you have all the maps right away, like literally the second you get into the capital. I can accept that for game fluidity, so that's not a huge gripe. So really, that's just it. I wish we could retreat, and I wish we could destroy our own stuff. Other than that, I think maybe maybe they should offer more fast games. I like to have some fast games. Like if I'm playing 4 games total, it'd be nice to have one of those be a fast game, and it develops quicker. Yeah, things like you get ambushed quicker, and all of a sudden you're like, what happened? So I mean, it's not for everyone, but remember, fast games they're still not fast by any stretch of normal gaming imagination. Like fast games are still really slow. They're just like 4 times faster than our normal super slow game. I think more of those should be offered. Most of what is offered now are those tutorial games, and I used to jump into those every once in a while for fun, but like nobody wants to face a cannon and 200 men, and you only have 100 men and no cannon. Nobody wants that. It's no fun. And then it's some noob who comes and just attacks you, and you know it's just not fun. The first time I realized that was when I was attacking in. It was early in my career, and all of a sudden, like, I was attacking into 10, and then all of a sudden there was 20 there, and I was like, what? And I won because I had enough. I think I was attacking from Arabia on that lower right hand corner, and so I won. And then I crossed the little channel, and then I think it's into Egypt. I don't play that map a lot, so I'm not really sure. But crossed the channel, and then like there's like 100 guys, and I'm like, wait, what? Like, I just killed 40 or 20. What's going on here? So anyway, if you don't know, for the tutorial map, which is fast, anybody who's never played before gets a cannon and 200 guys instead of 100 guys. So I'd like more fast games, maybe. But that's not really a complaint. That's just a wish, But that's it, guys. That's really, that's my big gripes. But what I do want to encourage is, if you have anything that you think could be more historically accurate or more accurate to the mechanics of warfare, then please share. One of the things that people really had a problem with was the whole thing where you could stop your army and then split off everybody but one guy. And then the 20 bombers that were coming after you would only kill that one guy, right? And then the rest of your army would keep marching, because when you split off, the army that stayed behind got the ID tag. It was if you were the 4th army, all you had to do is stop, leave with everybody but one guy, and then that one guy was the 4th army that the other guy's bombers were targeting. I've had a problem with that the whole time, specifically because if you've ever seen, videos of bombing, it's not laser precise. I mean, it may be more so now, but even now it's not. But in 1914, it's not. It was like some guy just walking along with kernels of popcorn, dropping them on the ground as he walked along. Like, it was, if you see those old movies, it's just hundreds of bombs just dropping down and just laying this long line of destruction. So my point is, area effect, yeah, splash damage, So it doesn't make sense for one guy who's like literally, just not that far away, because troops don't move super fast, especially if you've got cannon and often you would. So there are some mechanics that don't make sense for war. A lot of people will say that the new air mechanics with the cone has helped to alleviate that problem, because now you can redirect, if you're paying attention, you can redirect your bombers to that main stack. But you can go back and forth with that a lot if the other person just keeps on dropping a guy. But at least it's certainly better. In the old days, you'd redirect your bombers. They'd have to go all the way back to the base and then come back. So basically your bombers were useless against anybody who knew this trick. People will come back and say, hey, that's the way the game is, and they're just using the game as it stands. And I agree with that 100%. Believe me, I've used it. So it is what it is, and we deal with it. But I will say, there are some of those things that could be made better. None of this is to say that we demand that it's made better immediately or whatnot. This is just really kind of a fan, sort of a fanboy area where we can talk about things that could maybe improve this thing that we love so much. All right, guys, thanks for checking in. It's been a fun discussion. Oh, look, I could have done that the whole time, and then you wouldn't have to look at black for 7 hours. All right, thanks for checking in, guys. This has been fun. Again, please share with me any gripes or improvements that you think could be made in the game in the comments below. Appreciate it, gentlemen and ladies, right? There's some ladies out there. I know you are. See y'all later. Adios.